It's really good stuff. All right. We're going to wrap things up in just a couple moments. Before we do, I do want to remind you, very important, if you got the clot shot, and some of you did, admit it, even if you said, oh, I wouldn't do it. Your family talked you into it. I didn't, but my family did. But now you regret it because there is graphene oxide in your system. It's already been proven. How do you get it out? Is there a way? Well, yes, there is, believe it or not. It's through the infusion of glutathione. Glutathione is something that controls oxidative stress in your body. You cannot live without glutathione in your body. Where's the best place to get glutathione? Well, there are some people who go to the doctor and get a glutathione IV in their arm, right? $200 a pop. Who wants to have a needle stuck in you and have to pay $200 a pop to do it if you don't really need it, right? Well, here's the way to go. It's called NutraSwish. This is a glutathione product. It is absolutely fantastic. It puts glutathione in your system. And there's several different ways you can take this. You go to this website here, theawakenation.numi, Neumi.com, theawakenation.numi.com. It's scrolling across the bottom of your screen. And you can get it in a form in which you can swish it around in your mouth and then swallow it. There's another form where you can spray it all over your body and it absorbs into your pores. It really, really works. And it has a lot of fantastic benefits up to and including, but not limited to, decreased inflammation, reduced joint discomfort, a strengthened immune system, increased energy, enhanced stamina and endurance, improved exercise, recovery times, greater mental clarity, focus, and improved sleep. It's fantastic, but it also removes, and we can say this is not a false medical claim, removes graphene oxide from your system. So if you want to reverse the clot shot, get this. Again, theawakenation.numi.com. Now, yesterday, I accidentally left this scrolling on the bottom of the screen. And I'm getting texts. How do you turn it off? Thanks to the fact that it was on, I was getting orders all night long. So please, but I am taking it off this time because I don't want to distract.
I found it.
theawakenation.neumi.com. Please order it today. You will not regret it. Okay. That is going to do it for me. Now, I'll be back tomorrow, of course, at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Central Time, 9 a.m. Eastern for the Awake Nation. But there's one more hour of the show left to go. We have Karen Britt. We have, I believe, Scott Miller coming up. And their guest is Stephen Meyers, who is going to be talking about
the Pharaoh's Pump.
Right, the Pharaoh's Pump. Now, what is that? Well, you're going to have to just stick around and find out. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, they will continue. Penny Shepard will take over the left seat. Everybody else will take over the right. Stephen Meyers will be here as the Awake Nation continues. Stick and stay.
And we are back. The Awake Nation is back for its final hour of today. Welcome, Karen Britt. Missed you this week.
Yeah, it's been quiet, huh?
Well, actually, no, but
Well,
I'm
yeah.
texting you like mad. I'm like, where is she? How are things? Did you record this weekend?
We're working on it. We got some tracks down for one song so far, so we're working on it.
Nice. And people can find your music at theelasticarmyband.com.
Yep, that's it.
What's
Yep.
the new album?
I can't tell you yet.
Oh, really? If you told me, you'd have to kill me?
Shh. No, never.
All right. Scott, how are you?
Hi, good.
It was
Good
a
to be here.
brilliant show yesterday. I really, really loved everything that you had to say. And you're going to be on, normally Scott Miller will be on millerwellness.net. He will be on Saturdays, every other Saturday. But this Saturday, we're going to be dark, meaning that we're not going to have a show. So for all of you listening, we are going to do a little thing to let people know that this Saturday, the 27th, and Monday, the 29th, we will not be having shows due to observation of Memorial Day, and we will be back on the 30th, which is Tuesday. I have Stephen Meyers, who's in the green room, but it says device is not connected. I'm going to try to bring him in. I don't know if it says they're going to have to connect their mic or camera before you can add them to the stream. So he says he's going to click on the link again. So I'm going to remove him from our room, kick from studio, and he will be back. So anyway, Scott, any news on the front regarding Dr. Bitar? I know that there was supposed to be a conference. That conference was canceled. And you also do speaking engagements as well, do you not?
I do. Yeah, I just spoke in Spokane. It was kind of a takeoff of the Halt the Hospital homicide, and my part of it was kind of our path forward with basically the healing. So what David had said about glutathione, super important. But the problem, the primary issue with spike protein is clotting. And so one of the biggest things for anybody to understand is like something like enzymes that break it down. I'm sure you can take aspirin, but lumbrokinase or nattokinase, these are proteolytic enzymes that break down blood clots or keep them from forming. And that's one of the things that is so damaging and they don't show up on labs until they're too big enough to actually cause what we'd say is overt damage. So that's something that at this point everybody should be taking it, because if you've had COVID or you're exposed to people that are exosomally shedding, it's just something to keep in mind. I mean, there's things that we now have to do to kind of do a little extra protection for our system.
And you have different remedies and different services that you offer at millerwellness.net, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I cover the gambit. I used to just do pediatrics until I realized every time I would ask a mom, how are you doing? And almost ubiquitously, they would say, oh, I'm fine. And then I would start chatting with them. I'm like, oh, good gravy. She's mom fine, but she's not fine.
Yes. I'm going to introduce our guest. His name is Stephen Meyers, Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. He's an author, a lecturer, and independent researcher. Stephen Meyers has studied the Great Pyramids for over 20 years to understand how this ancient wonder of the world was built and why. And you can also find Stephen's books on Amazon. They are The Lost Technologies of the Great Pyramid and The Great Pyramid Prosperity Machine. And with that, I'm going to bring in Stephen Meyers. Stephen, how are you today?
Very good, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you. You actually answered the call. I've been trying to hook up with you for a while, saying, this person canceled. You've been touring and speaking all over the world. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what led you to actually start studying the Great Pyramids?
Well, other than this pyramid stuff, I'm actually a rather pretty normal guy. But I study the Great Pyramid. My interest is in how it was built, how the stones were brought to the building site and assembled, and also interested in why they would go to such an effort to build such a huge structure. I did recently lead a tour to Egypt a few months ago, a 13-day tour, and it was wonderful, just an amazing place. And I've written the 2 books. It also produced 2 documentaries,
Oh, wow.
and they're available for free, actually, on our website at www.thepump.org.
So what led you, I mean, take us like through your childhood, which actually led you to doing this?
Well,
You
I'm
know,
actually,
I mean, were you like building, were you playing with pyramids and Egyptian people when you're a little kid?
well, in a way, I have a very technical background, more than most. I'm an amateur radio operator. My degree is in electronics. One of my degrees. Have the commercial FCC radio telephone license, and you studied fluid dynamics and a whole host of other things. I collect antique gasoline engines and have a lot of technical interests. So the Great Pyramid is a very technical structure. It's a 45-story skyscraper built in ancient times, and I became interested in it. I like history and technology. So the Great Pyramid fills both of those subject matters. And then ultimately, read everything I could find, pre-internet days, and been on the web, done over 200 radio talk shows, and it all led me to you.
So on your site, it says Pharaoh's Pump Foundation. I'm just going to ask, why Pharaoh's Pump? What does that mean?
Well, why? It's
Yeah.
an homage to another person named Edward Kunkel, who wrote a book called Pharaoh's Pump. And he felt that the Great Pyramid was built using water locks, like the Panama Canal or the Erie
Yeah.
Canal, and barges, and that the Great Pyramid was a water pump. And we've developed that research and tried to give honor and glory to Edward Kunkel. And ultimately, there's a whole body of research that has advanced his direction of study.
The Great Pyramid water pump is environmentally friendly and non-polluting. You've got the combustion, the water, the air, the vacuum, the pressure, and is this electrolysis?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to read a little bit from your page. Pharaoh's Pump, try and say that 3 times fast. Foundation is an Oregon-based 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the development of decentralized energy, efficient, non-polluting energy technologies. Is there, in actuality, to the best of your knowledge, a free energy? Tesla wanted to create free energy way back in the 1900s. Is there actually a free energy source to the best of your knowledge?
No, nothing's free by any means. There's hydroelectric dams, and they make more energy than was used to put into them to make them. Let me put it that way. But certainly the energy isn't free. There's certainly a cost. Windmills often make more energy than the cost.
But it costs money to put the windmills up and build.
So there's no free energy as such. Maybe sunshine if you want to get a tan, but there are energy systems that are very costly, like nuclear energy. If you consider nuclear accidents, that type of thing. Petroleum is very costly when you consider the environment and other adverse effects. We're transferring money from the United States to, in effect, our enemies, the Middle East. So that huge transfer of money to purchase energy has some geopolitical adverse effects on the world. So there's some energy systems that are very costly, and some that are much less. And we think that the original builders of the Great Pyramid were geniuses and built a energy producing device infrastructure to produce, to pump water, which had a whole bunch of uses. So
So can you tell us, like in your study of the pyramids, just tell us about what you encountered and what you discovered regarding how the pyramids were built, why they were built, who built them?
well, I learned a lot in my study. I learned that Egyptology comes up with some stories about people with strong backs and a big ramp and all of that. And that's a wonderful story on how they think the Great Pyramid was built. But the dirty little secret about Egyptology is they don't provide any demonstrations. The
Right.
largest stones of the Great Pyramid are 70 tons. The entire science of Egyptology has never moved a 70-ton payload 1
Right.
inch. And the casing stones, the beautiful stones that were on the outside of the Great Pyramid, they were cut to extreme precision. And Egyptologists can tell you how it was done with pounders or chisels and that type of thing, except it can't be demonstrated. Egyptology has never made a casing stone like those at the Great Pyramid. It would be like someone telling you how books were bound during the Middle Ages, but no one could do it. Well, that wouldn't make sense. People demonstrate, there are book binders now, and they demonstrate how it was done. Or people say how Indians made arrowheads by napping, okay, but no one could do it. It can't be demonstrated. Well, that's not true. People nap. My brother-in-law is an expert napper, if you will, and makes arrowheads. So it can be demonstrated. So all these other technologies can be demonstrated, but the stories Egyptology tells can't be demonstrated in the real world. So that's one thing I learned.
Well, how do you think that they got those 70-ton things
I
there?
think they moved them using water locks, like in the Erie Canal, and barges. So when the Erie Canal was built, for example, it could move 70-ton payloads. It was designed to do that, which is the same weight as the biggest stones of the Great Pyramid. So in the 1830s, people on the Erie Canal moved 70-ton payloads. In the 21st century, Egyptology can't move a 70-ton payload. So
Right.
that science is in crisis. But they had water locks from the Nile River all the way up to the building site and moved stones up those water locks on barges effortlessly. So it was quite a process. Our first video series describes the process of building the Great Pyramid using water locks and barges.
So the Great Pyramid. Go ahead. Did anyone have a
Sorry,
question?
I'm a fan of geography, etc. I'm trying to. How far away is the Nile or some branch or tributary, whatever? Where was the closest water source? I'm trying to figure out how far did they have to move these.
Well, that was the distance between the Great Pyramid and the Nile was the shortest distance involved. Some of the stones were moved 400 miles from quarries upriver. So the builders moved stones 400 miles and then up water locks to the building site. The course and location of the Nile River has changed over the eons. So its exact location when the Great Pyramid was built is under scholarly debate.
Wow, 400 miles. That's incredible.
It is. Nothing primitive about the Great Pyramid at all.
So, Stephen, I talked to many different people on the subject too in some of my shows, and I've heard everything from UFO technology up to the giants and even Enoch. What have you say on it?
Well, there are several ideas. Some people say giants because the payloads are so heavy, you need something with big back muscles. But I don't think giants were involved. They don't need to be. Battleships are big and heavy, but you don't need giants to lift them through the Panama Canal. You just have operators moving levers and buttons, and they lift and move battleships. So big back muscles were not involved. And I don't think it was UFOs and or aliens. It's an interesting concept, because if you think it took aliens to build the Great Pyramid, then you're also saying the ancient people in the Valley of the Nile were not smart enough or capable of building the Great Pyramid. Those are two sides of the same coin. So I personally think that the ancient people in the Valley of the Nile were geniuses, and they built this infrastructure to provide prosperity. My second book is about the Great Pyramid being a prosperity machine. So just like our infrastructure in modern times provides prosperity, you know, our power grids, our sewer systems, the hydroelectric dams, that type of thing, all provide prosperity. And the Great Pyramid had a huge return on investment, which was providing prosperity for those who built it.
So when you say so I just in what because I'm there's so many things. Just even looking at my wife and I are looking at geodesic like dome homes, because of the when you look at the shapes, the harmonics or energetics of it, and I was thinking about that with the pyramids. But how did the pyramids themselves create the prosperity or the technology with which they were able to build them?
Well, my research is specific to the Great Pyramid, so it's not like a one answer fits all, if you will. It's not like a magic bullet answer, but it's specific to the Great Pyramid. But I think the Great Pyramid was a huge and expensive construction project. To build one now would be billions of dollars. And I think it had a bigger return on investment. Just like, again, a hydroelectric dam costs a lot of money, but they have a huge return on investment. Highway systems cost a lot of money, huge return on investment. Erie Canal, the same thing. So, it pumped water, and you can do a lot with water, to say the least. You can make compressed air, generate electricity, power heavy machinery. The Industrial Revolution in the United States started with water power. So I think that the Giza Plateau was much more of a industrial site or science center than just a place to bury bodies.
Yeah, so you go through the important chambers. I'm looking at the book right now of the Great Pyramid: the King's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, the Queen's Chamber, the Subterranean Chamber, Relieving Chambers, Grotto, Antechamber, and Lesser Subterranean Chamber. What is the King's Chamber?
Well, there's several chambers in the Great Pyramid, and people that think it's a tomb for a pharaoh, it doesn't make sense, because the pharaoh only had one body. Great Pyramid has many chambers, but there's a King's Chamber and the Queen's Chamber, and they all of those oddly created interior passages and chambers of the Great Pyramid were for the purpose of pumping water. And it's a pretty complex process, not as complex as a circuit board or a V8 engine, but water went through those passages and chambers and ultimately exited up through the King's Chamber vents.
Did they use this for for power for the city?
We do think that they generated electricity, that they certainly did irrigation year round. The yearly inundation in Egypt only lasted a few months, if you will. And with the Great Pyramid water pump, they could irrigate year round. It's interesting that they built the High Aswan Dam in Egypt, which stopped the yearly inundation, but they were able to generate electricity to pump water year round. So it's just interesting. In ancient times, they needed a water pump in the Valley of the Nile. In modern times, they have a large water pumping system in the Valley of the Nile, both to provide prosperity.
So when you say electricity, are you talking like some type of electromagnetic energy, or?
Well, it's hard to say. Around the Great Pyramid, right near it, are some very large excavations. And we think some of those house some machinery. We're not talking little shafts, but large, like 30-foot square and several stories deep excavations that you can still look down in. And then that housed some machinery. Possibly they used the pumped water to turn an impeller and then a shaft, but there's certainly other ways to generate electricity. But they have the Baghdad battery in that region, so we think that they did a whole host of scientific discoveries and things with the pumped water. You can make compressed air. With the compressed air, you can make very hot temperatures and very cold temperatures with a vortex tube. This is very, very rudimentary science. So they could have done a whole host of things, medical, experimentation, and everything else. So yeah, it was. There's nothing primitive about the Great Pyramid, and it was rather sophisticated in its operation and use.
Oh, I'm reading from your book. It says this building was built as an investment. It was an investment not for the spiritual enrichment of people 4,000 years later, nor as an elaborate object built to tell us in our age the builder's new pie, nor even as a gigantic grave marker to show robbers where the treasure was, but a tangible investment for the original builders' own lives and the enrichment of their children. For the original builders knew their achievement would change their lives for the better. The completion of the Great Pyramid meant toil was transformed into leisure and hardship transformed into prosperity. Times changed. The ancient civilization which constructed the Great Pyramid rose to majestic heights and then ultimately fell into anarchy. Flourishing cities were turned into ruins. Order became chaos. Productive expanses of farmland returned to barren desert. Life supported by high technology was replaced by subsistence living, and urban society regressed to hunter-gatherers. Barbarians burned libraries. The vast wealth of acquired knowledge was lost, replaced by ignorance and confusion. The knowledge, technology, and enlightenment that embodied the once high civilization which built the Great Pyramid became entombed and concealed by the sands of time. After the passage of eons, a new different civilization emerged and developed. This new civilization is our civilization, which developed and progressed in becoming advanced, but in different ways than the ancient civilization responsible for building the Great Pyramid. Our ideas, technologies, manufacturing processes, education, medicine, art, communication, and energy systems are all sophisticated, but different from the civilization that created the Great Pyramid. What did you mean, life supported by high technology?
Well, just like us, our civilization is supported by some very high technology. Hydroelectric dams, all they do is make electrons go through a wire. That's all they do. But those electrons you can use to power laptops, to have podcasts and shows like this, and that type of thing. So we think that in ancient times in the Valley of the Nile, they had some very high technologies which improve their lives. That's what technology is for.
So what technologies did they have?
Oh, they were able to irrigate year round. That's one technology. They were able to create compressed air, which they can use to make high voltage static electricity. They had the ability to cut large scale precision stonework. That's a high technology that cannot be demonstrated, certainly by the way Egyptology says it was done. So to create just a single component, a casing stone, required high technology to make such a thing. The casing stones weigh about 16 tons.
Wow.
Egyptology has never moved a 16-ton stone. They've never tipped it over. The casing stones are cut to precision on all 6 sides, and Egyptology can't even make a single side of a casing stone like those at the Great Pyramid.
How
So
did
there's
they
a
do
whole
it?
host of high technologies
How'd they
associated
do
with
it?
the Great Pyramid. Many we don't know about.
How'd they do it, Stephen?
How'd they do what now?
How did they create the pyramids?
Oh, well, they probably had a wise leader who wanted to improve the lives of a civilization. And that wise leader funded the Great Pyramid construction project because he knew there would be a huge return on investment. So they built water locks from the Nile River all the way up to the building site, moved stones on barges systematically, quickly, and effortlessly from the Nile River all the way up to the building site. And then they used the casing stones on the outside and set the first layer of casing stones, if you will. Those stones are cemented together, watertight. They fill that square wall up with water, and then they could bring stones all the way up from the building site to that pond, move the stones, the interior stones, off of the barges and into the pond. And when they filled the pond up with stones, then the first layer of the Great Pyramid was completed. That process occurred level by level all the way up to the capstone. And our website has our video series that has a lot of computer generated animations describing that fascinating construction method to build the Great Pyramid.
You say that the passing of millenniums has been very hard on the Great Pyramid. What has happened to those pyramids?
Oh, that's easy. Everyone that could damage the Great Pyramid. The Great Pyramid has no real structural damage other than from the hands of man, despoilers, looters, and people who used pistols in the Middle Ages and Renaissance. Men from the West, from Europe, would bring their little pistols and shoot them into the where the vents were to hear the echo, if you will. So the casing stones have almost all been removed. The Great Pyramid was used as a quarry in the Middle Ages by the Egyptians to rebuild Cairo after a major earthquake. So, yeah, the Great Pyramid is just a shadow of its former self and has suffered quite a bit of damage from the hands of man.
Okay,
Wow.
I'm bringing up your website
Stephen,
now.
I can ask a question too while Penny's pulling this up. On the degrees to how the pyramid was built, I know I've had some discussions with people like Dan Willis and stuff like that, and we talked about Marcel Vogel, who came up with the Vogel cut crystal that was designed after the pyramid because of the energy and the vortex of the degree that the pyramids were built in. So have you gotten into any of that on the structure, like the degree of how the pyramid is in?
We we actually haven't.
Okay.
None of that pyramid power or any of that. We haven't got into that. We think that the Great Pyramid provided power, if you will, and was a power plant, if you can use that word, but not with like energy crystals or any of that. A lot of that is, not our direction of research. Hydroelectric dams have different angles and that type of thing, but it often doesn't contribute to the ultimate return on investment. So no, the Great Pyramid is sort of like 4 hydroelectric dams all backed up to each other, if you will, and inside was water during the construction process. So that, I think, is why the Great Pyramid was built in a pyramid shape.
Can we play this video?
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah, that's part of our video series. It's just a few short videos that have different aspects of the construction process.
Video, a series of videos about our research concerning how the Great Pyramid was built. All we ask is that you watch the entire series of videos and ponder the information they contain. An important aspect of our research is that water was pivotal to the construction and purpose of the Great Pyramid. There is much evidence for water on the Giza Plateau. Herodotus described the Great Pyramid as being surrounded by water like an island. He even mentioned that the Great Pyramid had an artificial duct connected to it. Sir Flanders Petrie found Nile earth inside the passages of the Great Pyramid, which is understood to be sediment. The casing stones of the Great Pyramid are cemented together, and the joints between them are watertight. The Great Sphinx and its enclosure are famous for being eroded by water. Our contention is that water was pivotal to the Great Pyramid, and the role water played in the construction and purpose of the Great Pyramid will be described in greater detail in subsequent videos. Water was pivotal to the construction and purpose of the Great Pyramid. The Nile River was used to move many of the stones of the Great Pyramid on barges.
It's beautiful.
It is. There's a lot of information in that video series. It's free. We used to have both of our documentaries on DVD.
Mm-hmm.
One of the research
And sell them on Amazon, but there were people, around the world that couldn't afford them, and we want to disseminate the information, so we just made it available on our website. Both of my books are available on Kindle as well as in softcover. So
Yes. Okay, I'll continue playing.
And I invite you
And it
to
looks like
visit
it's
their
on YouTube
website
as well.
it is. It's on my YouTube channel.
www.forhumanity.org.
Yes, hold on just a second. Why don't you tell us what your YouTube channel is?
The link is on our website at thepump.org. So you just go there and click on the YouTube channel.
Okay, and then also you're on Facebook too.
I am Stephen Meyers, author on Facebook, but we have a lot of fun on Facebook, so they can be, follow me there, if you will.
And this says it's Giza, www.gizaforhumanity.org.
That's another group that I've done some work with. So a French lady runs that. Super smart lady.
Okay, I'll continue playing.
Another important issue concerning the Great Pyramid is the order in which the stones were set in place. It is our contention that the Great Pyramid was built level by level from the bottom up. In very basic terms, the first level of the Great Pyramid was built, including casing stones. After the first level, or course, was completed, the next higher level of the Great Pyramid was built, including casing stones. So basically, the Great Pyramid was built level by level, or course by course, including all the interior stones and the casing stones for each level until the capstone was set in place. The Great Pyramid was built.
A lot of information in the video series.
Including casing.
I'm sorry, what?
A lot of information in the video series.
How did they use the? I'm trying to envision it with each of those stones. So how did they use? So the water level is having to go up. How did they do that?
How did they get the water up there to supply the water locks? That's your question.
Right.
And then so they're physically raising the level of the water to the height as they're moving those stones up and placing them.
It's very conceptual, but the Great Pyramid has a big passage and some big chamber and passages underneath the Great Pyramid. And we think that operated as a water pump before the Great Pyramid was built. The original builders supplied water to the building site, and from there they were able to pump water up through the subterranean chamber and supply water to the water locks. So in modern times, if we want to build a tall building, we bring in a construction crane. In ancient times, they brought in, if you will, a construction pump that's still there to supply water for the water locks. Very ingenious. And then built the stones effortlessly. No big back muscles required.
How did they create? Wouldn't they need pressure to lift that up?
Yes, you
How
do
did they
need
create
pressure.
that kind of pressure?
Well, the similar but different than a hydraulic ram water pump. The subterranean chamber is about 100 feet below the bedrock. So they had a 100-foot head to work with, if you will, getting technical now. And that pressure created a great pressure down there, which there were some valves and other features that ultimately caused water to move up through the grotto and up into that pond, if you will. So they were very ingenious and were able to supply water to provide water for those water locks.
Wow. Very cool. That's amazing.
Shall I continue to play this?
If you want.
Okay.
Stones from the bottom up. The animations in this video series are intended to be very simple. The intent of these animations are not to concentrate on issues such as scale or complexity. Their purpose is much more important. The animations are intended to convey the major aspects of the fascinating construction procedures used to build the Great Pyramid.
Right.
But more importantly, the casing stones for each level or course were set in place first for that level, and then the interior stones were set in place for that level. So the bottom level of casing stones were set in place first, and then the rough cut interior stones of the first level were set in place. When all of those stones were set in place, the first level of the Great Pyramid was completed. Flanders Petrie was of the opinion that the Great Pyramid was built level by level, and that the casing stones for each level were set in place first before the interior stones of that level were set in place. So the order of stone placement described in these videos is consistent with the order of stone placement Flanders Petrie wrote about. The paving stones which support the first level of casing stones were set in place. Then the first level or course of casing stones were set in place. Then the interior stones were set in place for that level. The second course of casing stones were set in place. After that, the second course of interior stones were set in place. In basic terms, that is the order of placement of stones of the Great Pyramid. This will be elaborated on in detail in subsequent videos of this series. This series of videos will include computer-generated animations which depict a number of important issues about the
Level by level.
pyramid.
Right.
This video series will describe how stones were set in place in a very rapid manner, how the large casing stones were moved to the building site and set in place, how the largest stones were moved from the Nile River up to the building site is described, as well as how the largest stones were moved to the necessary height and set in their final resting place. Also, how the capstone was ultimately set in place, if there was one, is described, as well as so much more. So please watch and enjoy this video series about how the Great Pyramid was built. Talk about our research on Facebook and Twitter. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us through our website at www.thepump.org. Thank you.
So that was the first video in the series. There's about a dozen or so, and they're between like 6 and 10 minutes. But they have a lot of information about the assembly process of the Great Pyramid. Our second video series is about how the subterranean water pump operated and how the Great Pyramid itself, all those passages and chambers, operated as a water pumping infrastructure.
Did anyone live in the pyramids?
No, nobody lived in the Great Pyramid. It was fully automatic, like a automotive engine or your refrigerator. There's no like workers inside or anything like that. So similar to a hydroelectric dam, 99% of a hydroelectric dam is solid, concrete, and the Great Pyramid is 99% solid rock. So it wasn't any type of
Indwelling.
dwelling at
I don't
all.
know. I mean, my misinformation. I never studied the pyramids ever, but I have this concept inside of my head as pyramids in and of themselves having frequencies of healing, and that people lived in pyramids. Is that totally wrong?
I would say it's totally wrong. But there's just several rooms, if you will, one below the Great Pyramid and three major rooms inside. The Grand Gallery is at a 26-degree angle, so that would be hard to live in. It's only about 12 feet across, but about 150 feet long. Those are, very, basic measurements, if you will. So no, it's all infrastructure. It's a machine. Everything about it's a machine. Nothing to tell us about any gods or nothing to tell us that they knew pi or anything like that. There's no Great Pyramid Bible correlations that people have come up with. All of that is incorrect. So
We're
it's a
basically
machine.
just totally lied to about the Egyptians building pyramids and the slaves.
Actually, who built the Great Pyramid is beyond the scope of my research. But if you think, either Egyptologists are wrong about who built it, or it was built much earlier than Egyptology says it was built. So when it was built, who built it is all under scholarly debate. So, but I don't know
You've
if
been studying
anyone
this for 20 years. Do you take people, because you said that you were doing tours of the Great Pyramids? Do you sell, tours that people can come with you and listen to your research?
No, I was a co-leader, if you will, and I just went to do some lectures, add my 2 cents worth, that type of thing, do some on-site explanations, that type of thing. There was a person in Egypt that lives in Egypt, and that person did all the work
Okay.
instead of
So
me.
they just brought you in like as a speaker, and they
Yeah, as a speaker,
facilitated these tours, because I know Carrie Cassidy does tours in Egypt every year, and I think she goes to some of the pyramids too. I could be incorrect
I'm sure she
regarding.
does, but it was fun. We went to Luxor, Karnak, the statues of Mammon, those big statues, the High Aswan Dam, the largest structure in the Valley of the Nile, and Nubian Village.
So
Down
is the Luxor in Vegas modeled after that Luxor?
There is a pyramid at Luxor in Vegas, big black pyramid. It's a little bit smaller than the Great Pyramid, but I've actually been there.
Did they model it after that?
They did. It's about the same angle, if you will. It's probably as big as they could make it, but it's an impressive pyramid. But it has a purpose. Expensive project, but its purpose was to provide prosperity for those who built it.
Prosperity, how as well? Yeah, the Luxor in Vegas, that's for sure.
People come into that pyramid at Luxor. They put money in the slot machine. Okay,
right? Yeah,
some money comes out, but the rest of it goes to the people that made the Great Pyramid. It was an investment, or not the Great Pyramid, the Luxor Pyramid. It was an investment that has a huge return on investment. The people that own the Luxor Pyramid are millionaires.
Right. Are you saying that the same people that created the actual pyramids, it was an investment for a monetary advantage for their society?
Well, I would say either monetary or for political power, for control. Let's say the United States all the hydroelectric dams didn't work, and we were all impoverished because I get my electricity from the Northwest Power Grid, which is
Right.
mostly hydroelectric dams. Well, if we're all impoverished, we can't pay our taxes. So
Correct.
the leaders of a civilization wants infrastructure for the civilization to prosper. The same now as it was in ancient times.
Right. Nothing's changed. Do
Do
you
they
Nothing's
have? Do they have it like with the ancient? Right. This is not a strong suit for me, but do they have any like hieroglyphics, writings, things like that depict any of this?
Well, the Great Pyramid has no formal writing inside or out.
Wow.
You know why?
No.
Doesn't need any. It's a machine.
Yeah.
Your
But
gasoline
nobody- but
engine
no
in
one
your car
explains
has
that?
no formal writings inside the cylinders or the used to be carburetor. There's no formal writings inside there. Maybe some
What about
part
the?
numbers.
Oh, sorry.
Don't
What
need
about
it.
the
It's
other
a machine.
pyramids?
But in ancient Egypt, it seems every surface of every temple has writing on it.
Right.
They have walls that are 40 feet tall with writing up there. You can't even see what they're saying. Hieroglyphs and writing.
Mhm.
All the big columns and temples, everything's got writing on it except for the Great Pyramid. It was a machine.
Interesting. So, were in response to Scott's question about the other pyramids having hieroglyphics and writing in it, essentially that would be like graffiti or depiction of historical events that were occurring that they were writing down. Did anyone refer to that Great Pyramid that you know of?
Not really. The study of hieroglyphs isn't as cut and dried as Egyptologists say it is. A lot of it is guesswork, and they make up stuff, and there's some assumptions. But there's no real writing that says the Great Pyramid provided prosperity for those who built it. But there's no writing at all in the Great Pyramid, which is quite fascinating to me. Some other pyramids which could have been built thousands of years before or after the Great Pyramid, probably after. Some of those have some hieroglyphs in like the chamber, the Valley of the Kings. Down in those tombs, they're obviously tombs. They have writing all over them, every surface, the walls, the ceiling, the sarcophagus all has writing on it, but not the Great Pyramid.
How split is, as far as Egyptologists stating Great Pyramid was built at X time for X purposes versus what you found? How many people are on the Pharaoh's pump side versus other theories?
Well, we have a nonprofit foundation and all of that, but I'm not sure if truth is determined by popularity contest.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
So that type of thing. But Egyptology is a science in crisis because it doesn't engage in the scientific method. A lot of people believe the Great Pyramid was a tomb because that's what they were told until they don't believe it. A lot of people believe that the Piltdown skull was a missing link. A lot of people believe it. Now they don't. So things change in the world of science. And a lot of people believed that the Great Pyramid was the Bible in stone and that its angles and measurements confirmed Bible prophecy. And there were huge, thick books, like 600-page books, talking about all of those correlations. And a lot of people believed it until they didn't. A recent candidate for the United States of America,
Ben Carson?
Ben Carson.
Yes. He was a proponent that the Great Pyramid had some sort of biblical symbolism associated with it. So old stories die hard, but truth will prevail. And the Great Pyramid has been cocooned in a series of falsehoods and misunderstandings but we're in a new age now, a revolution of ideas, where the ancient people weren't just knuckle draggers dragging a big stones up a big ramp so the pharaoh can have a place to put his carcass and his treasure. Here's a good question for the tomb people. How do long open passages and doors on pivots protect the pharaoh's mummy and treasure? No coherent answer is provided. But Egyptology got its genesis from tomb robbers. Early Egyptologists essentially robbed tombs and sold the treasure to museums, so museums could get more ticket buying public to come look at the treasure. And that's the genesis of Egyptology. Now, and so Egyptologists, they encounter the Great Pyramid. Well, if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. It's a mindset. If you come up to this big infrastructure, oh, that was a tomb, but the proof it's a tomb is everything was stolen out of it in ancient times before Egyptologists could steal it. So since there's no evidence it's a tomb, then that means it was a tomb. So all of that, people are rejecting those ideas anymore.
Well, we're running out of time right now. We're closing our hour. Stephen, can you tell people again how they can find you, how they can find your documentaries, and tell them the names of your books?
Okay, great. Yeah. The best place to go is thepump.org at our website, and you can find out about our foundation, our mission statement, our activities, what we're about. And there's information about my books. These are both of my books, Kindle ebooks or softcover, and find out about the tour. And they can contact me through the website. We have also links to the YouTube channel, Facebook page, and that type of thing. But all I ask people to do is be part of the revolution. And the revolution isn't violence. The revolution is reading a book.
Yes.
The revolution is improving yourself. The revolution is seeking truth, and be part of that. So instead of passing judgment or just not understanding the direction of research, pick up a book and read it.
Yes.
And find out about what it says. That's all I ask people to do. Watch both video series about our direction of how we think the Great Pyramid was assembled, and also how it operated. It's how each chamber was used to pump water. So that's all. And if they have any questions, they can contact me through email is best, or through Facebook Messenger.
And what's your email?
info@thepump.org.
Excellent. And Scott Miller, where can people find you?
MillerWellness.net.
And you offer holistic services on your site?
I do, and we have a supplement store on the site, and some pretty awesome photo biomodulation therapy, stem cell therapies, which are really, really, really cool.
Excellent. And Karen Britt, where can people find you? I know that you're also an executive producer of you're like all over the place, of several shows. Where can they find you?
You can find me on Kingdom Talks Media. You can find me on The Quest for Truth with Karina Pataki. You can find me on theelasticarmyband.com. You can find me on the East Coast Hub. And you can find me here on the Awake Nation.
Right. Okay. And my name is Penny Lay Shepherd. We have reached the end of this hour. Please join us again for the Awake Nation Mondays through Saturdays. We will be off this Saturday and also the following Monday in observance of Memorial Day. We are Monday through Saturday traditionally, and from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central, 9 to 2 Eastern Time. On behalf of the Awake Nation, I want to thank my guests, Stephen Meyers, Karen Britt, and Scott Miller, my co-hosts. And my name is Penny Lay Shepherd. I'm also co-hosting with the fabulous David Zubelik, and we will see you again tomorrow. So we're out of time. We're out of here. Shepherd out.
Bye now.
Take care.
Goodbye for today from the Awake Nation. with co-hosts David Zublik and Penny L.A. Shepherd. We invite you to join us live on Rumble Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us for the Awake Nation News, 1 hour all news, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern. Followed by 4 hours of one-on-one interviews with influencers who defy the mainstream narrative. The Awake Nation, the truth with a shot of espresso. On behalf of the Awake Nation, with co-host David Zublik and Penny L.A. Shepherd, we thank you for watching the Awake Nation and ask you to join us again Monday through Saturday.